In today's show, can the Trailblazers reach a contract extension agreement with Shaedon Sharpe before the deadline at the end of October? Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making this show your first listen, coming at you each and every weekday, Monday through Friday. So make it a part of your daily routine. Make it your first listen. Tell your friends to do the same. It's Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, we're talking contract extension, negotiations, options, and possibilities for Shaedon Sharpe. There's some new reporting from Jake Fischer of the Stein line that the Blazers have made some early passes to try to get a deal done with Sharpe, who has until October 20th to sign a contract extension that would kick in next summer and avoid restricted free agency next year. We'll talk about that, the reporting from Fischer, the specifics on that, what Cronin said about an extension for Sharpe at Media Day, and plus a look at sort of the what is a fair deal, how fellow members of Shaedon Sharpe's 2022 draft class have fared, and what are the risks for the Blazers if they don't get a deal done, and what are the risks for Sharpe if he goes into the season without a long-term deal in place. So let's get to the nuts and bolts here. Rookies coming off a contract, players entering the final year of their rookie contracts is what I was trying to say, which Shaedon Sharpe is. A rookie first round deal for rookies is 2 guaranteed years and then 1+1. So you typically play 4 years, and entering your 4th year prior to the season starting, you can agree to a contract extension that would kick in for your 5th year and beyond. You can sign up to a 5-year deal based on the current rules in the CBA. So Shaedon Sharpe has until October 20th to agree to a contract extension with the Blazers that would kick in for next season. And if not, he will play out the season on his final year of his rookie deal. He would anyways. He just wouldn't have a contract in hand, but he'll play out the final year of his rookie deal, and then the Blazers can extend him a qualifying offer next summer, in the summer of 2026. They will make him a restricted free agent, and then they will have the rights to match any offer that he were to receive on the open market. That's how it works. That's kind of what you're up against. So there's reasons for why you would extend and why you wouldn't, and we'll get into sort of the nature of restricted free agency later in the show. But the most sort of tangible reporting we've received on this is from Jake Fischer, writing in the Stein line, which is a newsletter on Substack. And Jake Fischer, one of those news breakers in the league that kind of gives us a lot of how the sausage is made. Maybe doesn't get a lot of finish line news, but does tell us a lot of like sort of how the process works. And what we're early hearing from Jake Fischer and how the process works is the following. Fischer writes, this was published on Sunday, October 5th. I will quote it for you here. I've been told that the Blazers' initial extension to Sharpe landed in the 4-year, $90 million ballpark. But when I speak to various team strategists, more often than not, I hear an expectation that the bouncy swingman will ultimately command a Giddey-esque deal in the 4-year, $100 million range, if not higher. That is Josh Giddey, who was a restricted free agent this summer and eventually agreed to a 4-year, $100 million contract with the Chicago Bulls. 4 for $90 is a great deal of upside for Shaedon Sharpe. If the Blazers start there, boy, would that be a steal of a deal. If I'm the Blazers, I would probably try to get a 5th year. So whatever you need to tack on to get into a 5th year, 4 for $90. If you could get a 5th year, because that is such a potentially team-friendly contract, I would try to extend it out as long as possible. There are some scenarios when you don't want a long deal with someone like Shaedon Sharpe, who's 22 years old and has the upside he has. I would be pushing hard to get a 5th year. Have a player under team control for a long time, particularly if you think you are getting a pretty good bargain on this deal. More on whether that's fair or whatever in a moment. Joe Cronin was asked kind of, what his position was on extending Shaedon Sharpe at Media Day, and he gave the following nothing burger with no sides. I will quote it to you here. I never get too deep into any of these. I want to keep these private between the player and us. I think the way we're building this roster and the commitment level we have to all of our young guys, we're very open-minded to, if it makes sense for both them and us, we're very open-minded to taking this out very long term. That is a nothing burger, but I don't know what Cronin was going to say other than like, gosh, we hope he's on the team. But that's basically what he said. Like, if it makes sense, we'll get it done. And if not, he'll be a restricted free agent. And there's the way restricted free agency works, there's no flight risk. There is just like no mechanism that allows Shaedon Sharpe to actually leave if the Blazers want him on the team. Restricted free agency is not free agency. If he wants to be around, he'll be like, even if he doesn't want to be around, see DeAndre Ayton trying to get out of Phoenix, he'll be around. Like you are not actually a free agent. So part of this negotiation process is like kind of, why does Fischer know the negotiations 2 weeks before the deadline? Choose your own adventure on why that number and why the timing would be out. That's kind of where they're at. That this is the number, and he's heard from some other teams, and it seems a little low. Just piece together how you want to think that, why we think that is in the news. I think that's an important thing for you to do as you continue on your media literacy journey. But other players in Shaedon Sharpe's draft class have also signed extensions. And I did a similar show to this. I've talked about this a handful of times. It's important news. I think securing Shaedon Sharpe is important for the Trailblazers. He's a good freaking basketball player. He's very young. It's hard for me to imagine a good version of the Blazers, like this iteration of the Blazers, that does not include a good version of Shaedon Sharpe. Certainly there's a lot of things that could happen between now and them being really, really good, but I think if they're going to be good during this era, I think it includes Shaedon Sharpe turning into a very, very good player, and he's young, and this is his chance to do so, and you sign him to a contract in order to like make sure he's part of the plan, right? Again, he's not going anywhere, but getting this done early, and I'll talk about why both sides would want to get it done early in a moment. But because these rookie extensions happen by draft class, right? You're only eligible entering your fourth year after your third season and ahead of your fourth year, and it ends before the season starts, and then you can't negotiate in season for these rookie extensions. So like typically the guys who are max guys, it comes early. And this has been a tradition over the last, or a trend, I should say a trend over the last 3-4 years. And when I did this back in show in September, I mentioned the same stuff, so I'm sort of citing myself here. But Paolo Banchero signs a max in July. Jalen Williams signs a max in July. Chet Holmgren signs a max in July. One of the uncommon things that happened with this year's draft class is the Houston Rockets agreed to a 5-year, $122 million extension with Jabari Smith Jr. in June, way early. He was the first player in the draft class to sign. That is somewhat unprecedented over the last, say, 5 seasons, for at least 4 seasons, that a player of that caliber would sign a non-max deal that early in the process. That is relatively unlikely. Most of these things get done right at the deadline. But there's one other player from the draft class who also signed an extension. Nikola Jovic in Miami signed a 4-year, $62.5 million contract. That is kind of like role player money for a guy who might be an interesting role player in Jovic, but it is not this big, $100 million plus contract that Sharpe is likely seeking and Sharpe is likely worth. There are some downside scenarios with Sharpe because the 3-point shooting hasn't come around. He struggled on defense, right? But he scores really well. He finishes really well. He's a really good athlete. If you're projecting him to be a starter type of player, somewhere in the $20 to $25 million is what starter type of players are going to make in the NBA going forward. And players that are better than that are going to make a lot more than that. And it's a lot. The salaries are very large, but in terms of like percentage of the cap, like that's, $25 million is going to be the same percentage, equivalent to the percentage of like your third to fourth starter, as has been over the over sort of the history of the league, and that's kind of in the same range, and that like 15 to 18% of the salary cap range, short of the max, but in that sort of range. So I think 4 for $90. I think the reason that I think it's pretty To me, the reason that 4 for 90 is out there is because it is very specifically a low number, and getting it out early, like this is where they started. No wonder they didn't sign. Seems like a specifically low number. Maybe I'm leading you to water a little bit with this media literacy, but I think there's value in getting a deal done. Like I don't think necessarily the Blazers have to, and I'll talk about that later in the show, but I do think there is real value in reaching a number probably above this 4 for 90 figure, or maybe right in that range with Sharpe, and having some clarity about where you're headed. There's value for the Blazers, and I think there's some value for Sharpe in kind of getting this out of the way, although I think it's mostly on the team side. Let's talk about that in the second segment. What are the incentives for the Blazers to reach an agreement with Sharpe, knowing that he can't really go anywhere? You don't risk losing him, but what are the incentives for getting this straightened out in the next 2 weeks? Join me in the second segment and we will talk about just that. First though, let's talk Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet. It's designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. Peloton IQ offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, and corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter. Plus, you got a swivel screen. So if you are running on that Tread Plus, you can flip it around, hop on your mat, and move to strength training without missing a beat. And the personalized class recommendations can keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and your energy level every week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton cross-training tread today at onepeloton.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by the good folks over there at DUER. You know what they're doing? They're making really comfortable jeans. My favorite pair of jeans. I'm rocking the relaxed taper in black, and I'm out there doing stuff. So whether I'm working, running errands, just chilling, or doing hectic toddler stuff, I'm comfortable because DUER has 5 times the stretch of traditional denim. They feel stretchy without looking stretchy. I look like I'm wearing a nice pair of jeans, and I feel extremely functional because DUER are the pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. They invented the original performance denim, combining the classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear, the best of both worlds. So it's time to upgrade to the world's most comfortable jeans. Get your own DUER jeans today. I know you'll love those too. And DUER opening a store right here in Portland on Northwest 23rd in October. Check them out. 820 Northwest 23rd Avenue. This is the new era of denim in Portland, and you can go to their store and mention my promo code LOCKEDONPortland to get 15% off your first order, or check them out online. Shop DUER.com/LockedOnPortland for 15% off. That's shop DUER.com/LockedOnPortland. All right. So I do think 4 for 90 is probably a little low for Shaedon Sharpe, although I will say this. I would be remiss not to offer angles from other folks, right? John Hollinger of The Athletic, who has his board scores, which is a sort of an analytical model that suggests it's not like a predictor of contracts, but it is something that turns your production on the court into a dollar value. How much would you be, quote unquote, worth based on your production and projection? And he has Sharpe low. He has Sharpe in the 60 or 65 million over 4 years range, like low, like role player, mid-level money. That's what Nikola Jovic signed for 62.5. I don't think that's, while I have no way of like speaking to the specific math for Hollinger, who I think is really smart and has, worked in NBA front offices, or a NBA front office for a long time. It's like, I think that's more of a suggestion of the danger in agreeing to a big contract as opposed to as a projection of what Sharpe will sign for. I don't think Hollinger wrote it in his piece, but I bet if he had to guess, is a lot more money than that. Although it's like what he projects as a good contract and what he projects as a likely contract obviously are different. That's what I'm trying to suggest here. So let's say the Blazers, let's before I get into like the number, actually, let's just go here. The number, when I did this back in September, the number I threw out there was 5 for 115. Said, okay, that seems like a kind of a fair deal for all parties involved. And I think it has 5 for 115 has real upside for the Blazers. It's not a gigantic contract, right? But Sharpe has had enough challenges with, he's good, right? And he's shown some real stuff, but like, he's a shooting guard who hasn't shot the ball really well. He struggled a little bit on defense. I think undeniably, like, the best stretch of the season coincided with the Blazers yanking him out of the starting lineup, putting him on the bench, playing a different starting group, being bigger and better on defense, and that, like, they ripped off their best stretch of the year. But then he closed the year strong. I don't know that he took like massive step forwards on defense, but Sharpe was really stinking good the second half of the season. Elite finishing. He's really athletic and really strong around the rim. He has some decent shooting touch. Like, he shoots long 2-pointers really well to make you think like the three could come around. Like, that's a thing that could happen. Not everyone just magically becomes a 3-point shooter. You can't just like work your way into doing everything on the basketball court. But there is a world in which Shaedon Sharpe is like just scratching the surface and so stinking good. And so that 5 for 115, while it seems like a big number, has tremendous upside for the Blazers. Also, I think that seems to be generally in the range of what Fischer says, like talking to team strategists around the league. If they think like 4 for 100 is fair, is like more in the range for Sharpe, right? 5 for 115 is right in that range. Like, I guess it's a little lower average annual value. It's not like the true $25 million, but it's ballpark, right? Pool pond, as they say. So I don't. That's kind of the number I'm thinking in my head, just as we move forward. Like, if that seems. To me, that seems to check a couple boxes. One, it's $115 million. That's a lot of money. Two, it has tremendous upside for the Blazers and that's the value of getting it done now. The reason why you negotiate and you find a deal that works and a long-term deal that works for both sides over the next 2 weeks. And I don't expect to hear a resolution on this until the deadline. I expect this is on October 20th, news breaking. Either we hear the deal or nothing is reported and the Blazers move forward. But it gives the Blazers, the reason that you get it done for the Blazers is a couple things. Clarity of the roster and finances. Shaedon Sharpe's part of the plan, and he's part of the plan at this price. You might know he's part of the plan, but knowing he's part of the plan at this price, this is how much we owe him. Here's what the books look like. Here's like the, here's the sort of 5-year outlook and who's going to be under contract. And you can say, okay, well, here's what we think we're going to have to pay Toumani Camara, and then in 2028 when Deni Avdija hits free agency, here's what we're going to pay Deni Avdija, and here's what, it's like you're able to plan into the future, and you have hard numbers to put down in the sheets to say this is what we think as opposed to a projection. Okay, well, we'll think like 22% of the cap or something like that, right? You have a number. And like I said, if you're in this range of 5 for 115 or whatever it might be, like if Shaedon Sharpe makes 5 for 150, which I don't think that's reasonable. I guess like if you think 4 for 100, that's 4 for 125. 5 for 125. So that is different though. I guess it's not that different, but let's say it's 5 for 125, higher than the number I'm throwing out there. If Shaedon Sharpe is excellent, right? If he's excellent, if he's an all-star, 5 years at $125 million is a steal. It's a steal. 5 for 115 has tremendous upside for the Blazers because this is a potentially, if he, like I said, I'm having a hard time imagining a good version of the Blazers, like this iteration of the Blazers that doesn't include Shaedon Sharpe being a very good player. It's not a guarantee he's going to be a very good player, but to my eyes, if it ain't Shaedon, it's they're resetting in some form or fashion at some point. As good as Deni is and as good as Toumani is, it's like they need another guy who's like all-star level good to be consistently competitive at the highest levels, and Sharpe seems to be the guy based on his skill set and his youth that could be the person who checks that box. And if you get him on a contract that is paying him role player like money, and I mean, just take a deep breath, but $25 million a year in like 2 years out from now is not role player, good starter type money. But if you're playing good starter type money, to a player that is playing at a max level contract and isn't making, $47, $53 million a year, but is making 25, 26, 27 as it escalates, right? Or if you could structure it in a couple different ways. But like, that's the upside for the Blazers, is that the way you win in the NBA is that you have players that are playing below, that are producing well above their dollar value, that are saying like, well, we're paying him $25 million a year for 3 years, and he's made an all-star team, he's been third team all NBA, he's like, it's like this is one of the best young scorers in the league, and he's 24 years old, and we got him on this incredible deal, right? Like, that's where you win, because then because you're paying someone else under market, you can spend money elsewhere, you have more wiggle room, but you have the talent of a max level player. Am I projecting Sharpe to be a max level player? I don't know. Probably not in my own minds, but that's the upside, right? Is that if you do think he's really good, you get this done as quickly as possible, because you are much more likely to get good value in these extensions than bad value if you are on these non-max deals. There is a world in which there's bad value for Sharpe here, but I just think the chances of him being like at a minimum a top 7 contributor are pretty high, and if he's the 7th man, that's not great money. But I think he can. I think at 22. I maybe don't have comfort in saying that he's a franchise level player, but I do have comfort in saying that he's a talent, right? Like, he's a talent. I do think he's pretty darn good, and has some upside there. And like, if you pay decent players $20 to $23 million a year, that's kind of the going rate for decent players. Albeit, obviously, there are varying levels of decent, and these are sort of opinions of these contracts change over time, and there's risk. There's inherent risk in just like committing a fat chunk of money to someone, right? I think there is another side of this where people say he has to earn it. Sure, I think there's some real merit to that, right? Is that you say, well, here's the number we don't want to go over. With like 4 for 95 is just like a number we're not going to go over. And Shaedon Sharpe's people say, great, we're done having this conversation. Our client, Shaedon Sharpe's going to go ball out this year, and then you're going to pay him a lot more than that. Yeah, I think that's a totally reasonable take. The reason that I think you try to get it done early is because you maybe get an under market contract. But if you're sort of level of what might be under market, what might be like a good team friendly deal for him, then you don't cross over that line if you're the team, and Shaedon Sharpe's people don't sign for something they're not comfortable with. You play out the season. Shaedon Sharpe plays up to whatever level he plays for, and then he enters restricted free agency next summer. So is there risk in not getting a contract done for by the October 20th deadline? Yes, but not as much for the Blazers as you might think. Let's talk about that to close the show. Join me there, won't ya? First, though, let's talk FanDuel. Football season is here. In fact, I'm recording this during the middle of week 5 of the NFL season. And FanDuel has an offer for you that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet. Put down $5. And if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the FanDuel app. So there are so many ways to play on FanDuel. If you want to build parlays, mess around with player props, follow games live, and bet, quarters, minutes, possessions live as they happen. It's all going to be there for you on the FanDuel app. So if you're watching the games already, FanDuel can offer another layer to your viewing experience. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You're still listening to Locked On Blazers. So is there risk in the Blazers not signing Shaedon Sharpe to a contract by October 20th and letting him play out the season? Yes. Yeah, sure. There is. Absolutely, right? Because there is a chance that right now, you could probably get Shaedon Sharpe for, hey, if you come up to 110 million, he'll sign, right? If you could do average annual value, 26 million bucks, he signs. Blazers say that's too rich. Like he hasn't performed at that level. We need to see more. This is a big year for him. We want to see him, we want to see him play more and we want to see him prove it. Okay, great. Shaedon Sharpe hits a restricted free agency next summer. Again, there's no flight risk. There's not, if the Blazers want him to be on the team, every mechanism allows them to keep him on the team. Obviously, that decision wouldn't impact decisions down the line, but specifically with Sharpe, if the Blazers want Shaedon Sharpe to be a Portland Trailblazer, they have all the tools to have him be a Portland Trailblazer, even if they don't assign him to a contract extension by October 20th. And we saw how unkind players that hit restricted free agency this summer, in the summer of 2025, how unkind the market was to them. Jonathan Kuminga just out there floundering all summer long, saying that he's refusing to take this team option and he wants the player option, or he wants a guaranteed second year, and he's not going to waive his no trade clause, or yada yada yada, and then he takes this deal that he doesn't get the no trade clause. He is it is a team option on the second year, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's just it just didn't work out for him, right? He got a bunch of money, right? But he didn't win the fight with the Warriors. It ended up back where the Warriors had kind of said, this is the level we're willing to go to and we're not leaving. That's where it went. Josh Giddey got paid. I think if anything, it worked out for Josh Giddey. There was some reporting that he wanted $30 million a year. The Bulls were in the low 20s. They settled at 25. Josh Giddey got paid. Quentin Grimes in Philadelphia ended up taking the qualifying offer, which is a 1-year contract that allows him to enter unrestricted free agency next summer and makes him effectively untradeable. He is, because a low salary number, which is hard to match salary, plus he's got the implied no trade clause. Cam Thomas, same deal in Brooklyn, took the qualifying offer. Will enter unrestricted free agency next year, has an implied no trade clause, not a great salary matching number at what his figure is for the qualifying offer. There wasn't big contracts out there for productive players. Cam Thomas averaged 24 a game last year, right? I don't think his ilk, the sort of combo, non-defending, not great playmaking shooting guard, is like that. We've just seen that value is just not out there in the league. But Grimes is a decent enough role player, and there just wasn't money out there for him. This summer was a little bit different because there weren't teams with cap space. The only team with cap space was really Brooklyn. Next summer, there appear to be teams with cap space. It's 5 or 6-ish. It's mostly bad teams: Wizards, Brooklyn, Utah, Charlotte. Certainly one of them could see Shaedon Sharpe ball out this year and offer him a fat contract, right? I think he fits all of those teams to some extent reasonably well. And there are some other teams that are a little bit better that could create cap space. I think Detroit could, but they'd have to renounce Jaden Ivey's rights to get there and let Tobias Harris walk, and they could create a bunch of cap space. I think there's a mechanism in which the Lakers let a bunch of players go and they create a bunch of cap space. But are the Lakers going to do that for Shaedon Sharpe? That doesn't seem very likely. So there are going to be more teams with cap space next summer, and you need cap space to sign a player to a restricted free agent to an offer sheet, but it just hasn't happened that much. Obviously we saw the big 4 names this summer in Kuminga, Giddey, Grimes, and Thomas kind of play out right in front of our eyes, and I've talked about this in previous shows, how there just might not be restricted free agency, just cruel sometimes to players. It's not true free agency, and it's not. And you don't really have actual agency to switch teams. And also we haven't seen it happen that much where other teams have made a move to acquire a restricted free agent. In fact, according to Owen Phillips, who used to publish the newsletter, the F5, Phillips was this summer hired by the Denver Nuggets and now works in their front office. But he wrote this in July prior to joining an NBA team. He said he writes the following. I'm reading from Phillips's work at the F5. Between 2000 and 2020, there were 81 offer sheets issued to restricted free agents, or about 4 per year. But since 2020, the league has only seen 4 offer sheets issued total. The last restricted free agent to get an offer sheet was Paul Reed in 2023. And the last team to acquire a player in restricted free agency was back in 2020 when the Hawks offered Bogdan Bogdanovic 4 years, $72 million, and the Kings declined to match. All the other restricted free agents, Paul Reed, Matisse Thybulle, DeAndre Ayton of late of that ilk, have all had their offers matched. So you make this offer sheet, it ties up your cap space, and you don't even get the player because it's restricted free agency. We've seen 2 straight off seasons in 2024 and now in 2025 where 0 offer sheets have been offered to restricted free agents. Increasingly, the league teams are not using free agency as a tool in order to sign sort of these big money players. They're signing role players via free agency. Most big names typically change teams via trade, although Paul George, I guess, bucks that trend a little bit recently, signing in Philly. But for the most part, we're seeing the best players sign contract extensions, get the money, and then work trades beyond that. That seems to be the trend. Free agency in general has kind of gone a little bit quiet, and restricted free agency over the last few years has gone largely dormant. So if the Blazers do let Shaedon Sharpe hit restricted free agency next summer, they extend him a qualifying offer and they try to get a deal done or allow him to go out on the market and get a deal done, there is some risk, right? Because if he balls out, some team offers him a huge deal, right? And they say, okay, you're pushing like close to the max. What about $33 million average annual value? And the Blazers say that's too much. And then they do end up losing him. But I would say increasingly the trend of the league suggests that is very unlikely to happen. And even looking at the books next year, I guess there's a world in which the Jazz decide that that's the move, or Brooklyn decides that's the move, or what have you. The Wizards decide that's the move, although they have a lot of young guards. But I don't think there's this big existential threat. And that's actually probably one of the things working in the Blazers' favor in terms of negotiating. They say, you saw how much it sucked this summer for restricted free agents. You saw, your agency has the books. They can tell you, they can look up, cap space projections for next summer and know that, maybe there are a limited number of teams that would both have cap space and would make sense. Your window is you're threading a relatively small needle of finding a whole bunch of money out there. Even if you ball out, even if you are awesome, there is not necessarily a space where the Blazers will all of a sudden be forced to drive up the price because, again, you're a restricted free agent. You're sort of negotiating against a market that doesn't exist often or has not existed over the last couple off seasons. So while I do think there is some risk for the Blazers that Shaedon Sharpe plays himself into being too expensive, not too expensive that they couldn't match, because again, they have all the tools to, but that they wouldn't want to or give them pause, or by doing so, he plays so well and ups his dollar value so much that it makes a future extension for Toumani Camara a little bit tougher, or it makes the summer of 2028 when you're going to need space to re-sign Deni Avdija. It makes that just okay, well, that's going to be impossible. It just starts to get dicey because you're saying, okay, we have these. By then, we're going to have all these other guys on the books, et cetera, right? That's a little bit far down the line to really worry about necessarily, how much does Shaedon Sharpe impact it, but it's certainly part of the whole calculation, right? Is the decisions you make now affect the decisions you can make in the future. So my prediction is still that the Blazers don't get it done with Sharpe. It was then, but I'm leaning more towards, if I'm both sides, somewhere in that 5 for $115 range that I pitched is, again, a lot of money for Shaedon Sharpe because it's $115 million. And it's a little less than what Jabari Smith Jr. signed for. And you could argue that Smith has been much more positively impactful as an NBA player, although maybe Sharpe has higher upside. But production at some point matters more than potential. Although on these contracts, you are paying for potential, though, let's be clear. So, just shy of the Jabari Smith Jr. contract, somewhere in that range, somewhere in the range of the Trey Murphy contract, who signed a similar deal. So I think, I'm still guessing that the Blazers don't get it done because I think that maybe the sides will still be far apart, and that Sharpe says the money you're offering me now could be there in the future, right? I'm still going to be worth this amount of money and maybe more, but we shall see, because I think there is a chance that if the Blazers are really willing to be, play hardball and be a little bit uncomfortable in this negotiation, that like Sharpe could, if you hit restricted free agency, you could end up losing money. Even if you play better in year 4 than you did in year 3, you can end up losing money just because of the nature of how, I don't know, free agency and cap space has worked in the modern NBA in the apron era. But yeah, I think it should be a priority for the Blazers at least to get really close with Sharpe. If they should try to get it done, because I think there's real upside for the team in getting it done, and for Shaedon Sharpe, it's getting $100 million. But like, I think I wonder how far apart the sides are if the early reporting suggests that the Blazers were in the range of 4 for 90, and seems to be some framing that suggests $100 million is more palatable, if not more. So I'll stick with my 5 for 115 offer, and we'll see how it ends. Tomorrow, I'm going a little long here, but tomorrow's show, I think the Blazers should be viewed as a play-in team, period. And my view on this has changed. Doing a little research over the summer and then revisiting it this week as I prepare for shows. My opinion on the Blazers' ultimate ceiling and what their projection should be this year has shifted. I think the Blazers should be a team that you pencil into the play-in spot. And on tomorrow's show, I'm going to tell you exactly why I think that. So come back and join me for that one. Obviously, if some news comes up, things change, but that's what we got coming. 5 shows, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Preseason games this week. The Blazers play twice on Wednesday and Friday. We'll have you covered for all of those things, is what we do 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Tell your friends about the program. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.